Good evening, Dolphins fans. Welcome to another episode of On the FinSide here with Kat and Paul. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL on Twitter. Paul is fanatic_pick. So we're 12 days away from our next game against the Los Angeles Rams. So we weren't anticipating doing a show, but we definitely had to jump on here because big news today. Tua Tagovailoa was named Dolphins starting quarterback for week 8 and presumably for the rest of the year. Paul, we talked about this a little bit on our show Sunday when we wrapped up against the Jets. And we both thought that this was not going to happen in week 8, would probably happen a little bit later in the year. What was your reaction to the news?
I was surprised. I mean, it's Fitzpatrick's playing well, but I've gone back and looked at a lot since that happened. And in reality, you look back at Flores' quote from when he was talking about Tua's injury. You remember the whole, if it was my kid, yada, 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 et cetera, et cetera. He ended that with, when he's ready to go, we'll put him in.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of like a forgotten little afterword to that whole soliloquy that Flores went on. But I think it's an important one. I don't think it's an indictment of Fitzpatrick. Fitzpatrick's been playing at worst okay, but it's, he's seventh in QBR in the league, this and that. I've seen Dolphins fans already pushing to trade the guy. Not happening unless somebody blows the Dolphins' doors off for him, which not happening for a 38-year-old journeyman that's pretty okay. But his leadership for Tua is going to be invaluable this season. You watch that game on Sunday, he was his biggest fan out there. And it's the right move with the bye week. And if Flores says he's ready to go, based on everything else, I've got to believe he's ready to go.
Yeah, I was surprised a little bit, but not as much as I probably would have been on Sunday night. When you start piecing everything together, that he got in late in the game and that Ryan Fitzpatrick had a really bad second half against the Jets. It didn't matter, but he did. Fitzpatrick starts the game 10 for 12 for 111 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the Dolphins score 21 points. In the second half, are actually from 1 minute left in the first half to the rest of the game, he was 8 for 15 for 81 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and the Dolphins scored 3 points. I mean, and it seems that as the game continues to go on, physically, I'm not saying Fitzpatrick can't hold up, but his arm seems to get weaker as the game goes along. Maybe it's because he's taken a little bit more off the ball, but physically, I didn't think he could hold up for 16 games.
I mean, he's a 40-year-old chunky quarterback. What do you want from the guy, who's never been a strong-arm guy? And he's a leader. He, like a lot of people have alluded to, he's probably the most beloved player in the entire Dolphins locker room. He's a great guy, and I don't want to take anything away from Fitzpatrick here. I mean, anytime you can get a great beard behind center, I'm all for it. But in reality, it's to a time we need to see what we've got. And yes, the division is within reach. And one of the reasons we really need to see what we've got is if you look at the bottom end of the league right now, it's pretty bad. And the Texans, with one win, are literally one weekend away from the number 1 or number 2 overall pick at this point, even though they'd be number 7 if the draft happened today. And that's Miami's pick. So Miami needs to figure out if Tua can hold up to the beating. If he can be all those things that we think he can, that he thinks he can, that everybody thinks he can be, that's all nice as a hypothetical, but we need to see what he can be.
Yeah. And what I like about this is, and the timing of it are a couple of things. Number one, several weeks ago, we were talking about how the defense was terrible. The offensive line has these rookies playing, and we don't know if they can hold up long term. Dolphins didn't have much of a running game. None of those things are true anymore. I mean, Myles Gaskin is coming off 18 carry for 91-yard game. The offensive line with Robert Hunt and Solomon Kindley on the right side, which is going to protect Tua's blind side, has shown that they're a solid tandem already. Defensively, they've been phenomenal over the last 2 weeks. So now you have a situation where suddenly the Dolphins do have a supporting cast, at least right now, to support a rookie quarterback.
And not only that, I've seen a lot of people down on Grant, and with some good reason. Jakeem Grant. But Jakeem Grant is like the ideal Tua weapon. It's you watch him at Alabama, you watch the guys he likes to hit, the streaky guys coming across the middle and then flying over the top. That is the Jakeem Grant type of weapon. And if he's in there, I do expect Jakeem Grant's play to go up. He's not just going to be chucking jump balls to his tall guys. And that's a Fitzpatrick hallmark. He makes good with it. I'm good with it. But really, I'm looking to see what we see out of Isaiah Ford now. See if we can get Gesicki involved again. Austin Jackson should be back soon, and suddenly you've got too many good offensive linemen that should be starting, and that's a good problem to have. So really, I think Flores let the team acclimate, let Tua get a little bit healthier, and once he was ready, Flores did what he said he was, and he put him in.
Yeah, and
Although
the reason
they haven't officially announced it yet, to be honest.
No, they will. There's a lot of time left here. But what I like so much more about the timing too is because I probably would have disagreed with Tua getting into the starting lineup anytime before this week. I mean, you go back to the Patriots game week 1. You're not going to bench your starter after one game. Then the Bills and the Seahawks losses. You can't bench the guy that threw for 350 yards and was moving the ball down the field when your defense was playing so poorly. He wasn't the right guy to blame with that. The Jaguars game, you're not going to bench him after that. He went 18 for 20 with a near perfect quarterback rating. And then you're not going to bench him after the 49ers game when your team put up 43 points. So this was a great opportunity because, like I said, he didn't play well in the second half. He had 2 interceptions. He threw for 80-something yards, and they only scored 3 touchdowns there. 3 points there in the second half. So great timing. And another thing, when you look just at the rest of the year here, I mean, let's just take the next 3 games here. You've got the Rams at home, you've got Arizona, and then you've got the Chargers at home. You know, if the Dolphins, let's say with Fitzpatrick, they won the next 3 games and they're 6-3, you're not going to bench Fitzpatrick then. You're not going to bench him on a 5-game winning streak or winning 4 out of 5. So I think the timing here was perfect, especially with 2 weeks to prepare.
Yeah, and I mean, ideally, before Cam Newton got COVID and screwed up the Dolphins' schedule, we were always talking about the bye week as the ideal time to make this change. So a little bit tougher opponent coming out of the bye week than originally planned, but you know what? It's time. We got to see him get out there, and like you said before, once he gets on the field, you didn't want to see him come out. You got your wish.
Absolutely, and it's a good stretch of games for us to figure this out. You know, I've given up a lot of hope on the Texans getting the number 1 or the number 2 pick, very simply because as bad as their defense is, I don't see Deshaun Watson quarterbacking a 2-14 or 3-13 team. They almost beat the Titans. They probably should have beat the Titans this past weekend, but they are 1-5. They've got the Packers, and if you look at their defensive stats, they are allowing over 6 yards a carry to opposing starting running backs. Their quarterback rating that they're allowing to quarterbacks is somewhere around 120, and they have 1 interception all year. So defensively, you almost have to see it to believe it. And I think they're going to end up trading a guy like J.J. Watt or Bernard McKinney here as it goes along. But even if the Texans go 6-10, they're going to be picking between 8 and 12 in the NFL draft. So that's going to be still a important pick. And why that's important is if you can get Tua in there and looks like the answer this year, and then you have an offensive line with 3 rookies and you don't necessarily have to spend resources, that opens up your options. Maybe you draft a Jamar Chase instead of an offensive tackle. Maybe you draft a Micah Parsons at linebacker. So it starts to open up a lot of different options for the Dolphins.
It really does, and there's a lot of exciting options at the top of the draft. In given the fact that Miami, like we talked about on the show the other night, is picking 7th and 15th, they could arm up in a lot of different ways. If the receivers they don't feel are shaking out the way they want, they can go after a Waddle. If Tua, God forbid, isn't what we hope, there's two or three guys that are going to be sitting right up at the top of the draft, and Fields and Sunshine and all those guys. If they want to turn this into an offensive line that's going to be monstrous for the next decade, maybe they grab Penei Sewell and kick Robert Hunt into guard and call it a day. I mean, it's they've got a lot of options, and now it's nice that we're looking ahead in terms of upgrades, not in terms of like Jesus Christ, there's this gigantic hole, but in terms of upgrades. And hopefully, God forbid, it's hopefully they can upgrade Jamal Wiltz off this goddamn roster next year.
I still don't have a problem with Jamal Wiltz, but
Or Perry,
that's
sorry, Jamal Perry.
yeah, Jamal Perry, yeah, the I understand, but yeah, there really isn't a major hole on this roster right now. There, but like you said, there just about every position could use uh, another player or an upgrade or however you want to put it. And you're exactly right. If you're able to hit on Tua and you've got those three young offensive linemen, yeah, you can draft Penei Sewell if he falls to your spot, or if you're in position to do it, but you don't have to. And that's the great thing about it. So yeah, the Dolphins are going to continue to add more players, and they need more players as we go along here in the following few years. But right now, I've got to say, I'm the Dolphins are further along at this point in the year that I expected them to be. 3-3. Okay, I kind of expected them to. I would say if I had to pinpoint, I would have expected them to be maybe 2-4 at this point and finish the year at 6-10, 7-9. But man, if at this point, yeah, with how the defense is playing, yeah, I mean, the AFC East is definitely within reach.
Yeah, definitely. God, there's a lot to get hyped up about. I mean, granted, it was the Jets, but even in a bad performance, it was 24-0. The week before against San Francisco, with all their weapons back, and San Fran was what, a 9-point favorite in that game.
Mm-hmm.
Miami dropped a double-digit win on top of them. Uh, the losses they've had this year, they were pretty close in most of those. Like a couple plays here, a couple plays there, like we talked about. So, you know, you take a team that was a couple plays here, a couple plays there away, and you add a player into that every player that I've heard talk about him says throws down a handful of wow plays that Ryan Fitzpatrick even admits he could never do every week in practice. You add those couple of wow plays, that might be the difference between 3-3 and 5-1, and that's no detriment to Ryan Fitzpatrick. That's a compliment to the things that Tua does in practice by all reports.
Yeah, but also too, the other side of that is two is a rookie, and he's going to have
Yeah.
to learn. And you know what I was impressed with Fitzpatrick is how cerebral he was this year compared to in years past. Yeah, he's got what 7 or 8 interceptions in the year. That's high, and it should be more. But managing and controlling the game, and I cannot believe I never thought I'd see Ryan Fitzpatrick have a 70% completion percentage, and that's what he's got this year. So that's a little bit of the surprising part and questions that people that are not even Dolphins fans have asked me throughout the day here is the Dolphins have won 2 games in a row and they've put up all these points. Why would you switch your quarterback at this point? And I'm glad that they did it
Yeah.
because I'm glad Tua can get in there and play games that matter. Because if you're 10-6 at the end of the year and you're in the playoffs and you've got an extra first and second round pick heading into next year, man, that's when you can start putting this into high gear.
Well, and I look at it this way too. With 10 games remaining, you look at Tua, and even if he comes out and falls a little flat the first couple of games while he's getting his feet and getting ready to go, you've got time to recover from that and a favorable schedule to do so with. So really, there's a lot to like about making the move at this point in time. The offensive line is ridiculously solid, no matter what a couple of the talking heads that have never watched them play have to say, or have watched 2 highlights from post game. But watching this offensive line, you and I both know they've been monstrous this year up front. Those damn meat monsters, man. They keep getting it done, and that allows you to put Tua in. The fact that Miles Gaskin is turning it on allows you to put Tua in, and your defense is putting you in games, and your punter's putting you in position to win the field position battle. He has a recipe to succeed. He just needs to go out and do it at this point.
I look at the next 6 games here, Paul. You've got the bye week, which is big because you can get Byron Jones and Devontae Parker healthier and get Kyle Van Noy healthier. And the Dolphins really presumably should be at full strength by the time they play the Rams. And that's huge when you look at the talent on this roster. But the next 6 games, you've got the Rams at home, at Arizona, the Chargers at home, at Denver, at New York Jets, Bengals at home. Those are 6 games right there where 4-2, 5-1 is quite possible. And if you can even go 4-2 in that stretch, which is, I'd be very disappointed if that didn't happen with how the defense is playing. You could just set yourself up in a position where you can go 2-2 in the final 4 games and go 9-7 and get that 7th seed, or 3-1 and be 10-6 and get a playoff spot too. So yeah, this was the right time to do it. No question about it.
Yeah. And really it's the third or fourth seed is not out of reach going into the playoffs there either. I mean, Dolphins are 1 game behind the Bills right now, who are playing like hot buttered ass at the moment. And you look at the fact that the Rams are going to play on Monday Night Football and then have that quick swing around to play against Miami. So who've had 2 weeks to rest, which, hey, look at the Titans. They rested like hell for 2 weeks, and look what they did to the Bills when they came back out. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
it's Miami's set up well to succeed here.
In the AFC, yeah, it's a tougher conference this year, but it's tougher in that you've got 4 or 5 teams at the top. I mean, let's face it, the Chiefs and the Ravens are not going to lose more than a few games. They're in. The Titans and the Steelers square off this weekend, but they're both 5-0. Or they're both undefeated. Pretty sure they're 5-0 or no, 5-0 and 4-0. Anyway, they're going to be in. So that's 4 teams. Then after that, you've got a big competition there. I mean, I still think the Bills will win 9 or 10 games. And then you've got the Patriots, you've got the Browns, you've got the Colts, you got the Raiders. But without question, if the Dolphins can pull off 9 or 10 wins, they should get one of those playoff spots. And that's where the focus has to be right now, as we approach the middle and the end of the season. Is that the old logo?
That is the old logo on my 2008 AFC's champions.
That was a great year. It's a great
I need
year
to update this beat down old hat. And I think there's a realistic possibility Miami could do it. And that's where I'm talking about that 4th seed being the target right now. It's not unattainable. It really is not.
This is the time to go on that run. And again, in those next 6 games, Dolphins should be able to win 4 or 5 of them if they're going to be taken seriously here throughout the rest of the year. But it's great that we can be talking about winning again. And I think this defense is clicking on all cylinders too. And that's going to definitely help support Tua. Paul, anything else that you want to add here?
No, I'm looking forward to, I'm glad I get to get on here and talk with your crazy ass here on a night we didn't plan. Getting to talk a little bit of Tua, getting to talk about the Fins while we thought we were going to be in a little bit of a lull here. And I'm looking forward to what we see in 2 weeks. Now I don't want to wait. It's like Christmas coming. And we've got to wait 10, 11 days now. It's killing me, but I'm ready for it. And yeah.
It's actually 12 days, but who's counting?
Jesus, stop it. It's the 12 days of Tuamus.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting here. I mean, when we get back from the bye. So that's going to do it for our breakdown of the Dolphins promoting to the starting quarterback spot. You can follow Paul and I on Facebook, Twitter, Spreaker, iTunes, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and Spotify. I'm Brian Cat NFL. Paul is Fanatic _pick. And if it's not on the right side and it's not on the left side, it is on the fin side. So